Welcome back, Patriots. Welcome to Sons of Liberty 1773. This is indeed where men and women from around the world come in defense of liberty. I'm your host, Bill Bailey. Let's begin here, folks. This is breaking news. The head of the NATO Military Committee, Admiral Rob Bauer, says NATO is ready for a direct confrontation with Russia. Here's the video saying just that.
Well, they have shown us in a document. It was a concept treaty text in December 21. They sent us a text which basically said we had to go back to the pre-1997 situation, and that's what they're aiming for. That's their strategic objective.
But you don't believe that it's only about Ukraine?
No, it is about turning back to the old Soviet Union. Many nations in NATO thought for decades that we were owning the timelines. We were the ones that decided to go to Afghanistan, to go to Iraq. It was a decision from NATO, from the NATO nations. And so we owned the timelines. We were saying, when are we going, with how many troops, for how long, etc. Now, we are facing a threat, which is Russia, that is coming to us uninvited at a moment of their choosing. So we have to be much more ready. We have no time to prepare because it is up to them when they come.
We are ready to a direct confrontation with Russia.
We are.
Are we ready for nuclear war? And do you believe in that possibility?
I think Vladimir Putin is not insane. So that's the good news. He has ideas that are not our ideas, but he's not insane. So he is still a rational person, and I think that is important with regard to the use of nuclear weapons. Well, I think it's extremely important that we all continue to agree on the fact that a nuclear war should not be fought and can never be won.
Just on Russia, Vladimir Putin is definitely a very sane person. He's not insane. But Russia's nuclear doctrine is a lot different than America. They believe they can win a first strike. They see an offensive use to nuclear weapons. So to just dismiss Putin as saying, well, he's sane, so he won't use nuclear weapons, I'm not sure that's completely accurate. So this is over at the Daily Mail. Vladimir Putin is set on big war with NATO to bring back the Iron Curtain, says top Russian political scientist, as Ukraine warns Russia will launch new preemptive strike by February 24th. I believe that, folks. I believe Putin wants to advance before all the new military hardware starts showing up from Poland, Germany, and America. Although I've heard the tanks, the M1 Abrams, will be months getting to Ukraine. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but that's what I'm hearing. Vladimir Putin is set on a big war with NATO to try and bring back the Iron Curtain. A Russian expert has warned, as it is revealed, Russia is planning a new preemptive strike in Ukraine. Moscow is said to be preparing for a new offensive ahead of the first anniversary of their invasion on February 24, and satellite photos show Putin's forces building up fortifications. Putin aims to start by swallowing both Ukraine and Moldova, then subjugate Eastern Europe, restoring a Cold War-style Iron Curtain across the continent, according to Professor Grigory Yudin. Dr. Yudin, a professor at the Moscow School of Social and Economic Sciences, does not believe major Western countries will fight to save the likes of Poland and Lithuania. I strongly disagree with him on this, by the way. If Putin goes through Ukraine and attacks a NATO country, it's full-on World War III. Continuing, we must free ourselves of the illusion that this is a war between Russia and Ukraine. From Kremlin leadership point of view, he said. The Russian leadership doesn't believe Ukraine exists. It is impossible to fight what doesn't exist. To them, the war in Ukraine is really against the West. Putin allegedly plans for NATO to be pushed back from countries such as Poland and Lithuania, which were once in the USSR, or its sphere of influence. The entire Eastern Europe, Vladimir Putin considers his fiefdom. Already in the current military operations plan is the taking of Moldova. Predicting Putin's readiness for a big war, he said, they cannot reach it yet due to not being technically prepared, but Moldova is there in the plans without any doubt. He stressed in an interview with presenter, a name I can't pronounce, that if the Russian leadership continues according to its scenario, we will inevitably see the war in all these territories of Eastern Europe and possibly even further. It is a war, he says, was long considered inevitable by Russian military and political leadership. This over at the Sun. Sun's kind of a tabloid, but they get some stuff right a lot of times. Putin's allies call for Berlin to be nuked after Germany's game-changing decision to send Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine. Fuming, Kremlin propagandists threatened nuclear strikes on the West today after Germany agreed to send tanks to Ukraine. This article's from just a few days ago. One high-profile Putin mouthpiece demanded Berlin's Bundestag parliament should be reduced to radioactive ash in retaliation. And raging Moscow TV pundit Yevgeny Santavisky said warheads should be launched on the center of German democracy. He said German tanks with crosses on their armor will again march across Ukraine, attacking Russian soldiers. And folks, you know, there's some old wounds there from the German attack during World War II on Russia, where there's 20 million people killed in that battle. And they see this happening again now. Germany is sending tanks to kill Russians. So, there's some old wounds that are coming to surface. Continuing, I have a natural reaction to this. The Soviet Union bombed Berlin in 1941. And to me, this is a signal that the Reichstag, or Bundestag, which now replaces the Reichstag, simply should not remain standing any longer. Flat, slightly radioactive, melted down to the ground is what they would like, nuclear bomb. Another of Putin's favorite propagandists, TV host Vladimir Solovov, claimed it meant Germany had joined the war. He ranted, "It's time to send a clear, resolute message that we now consider Germany a direct party to the conflict, rekindling memories of World War II. German tanks appearing in Ukraine will definitely mean we consider German territory, military bases, and other sites a legitimate target." Then one other little tidbit here. You can see the axis of evil is forming, right? North Korea blasts U.S. tanks for Ukraine, vows to stand in same trench with Russia. North Korea has issued somewhat rare statements lashing out at growing U.S. military involvement in Ukraine, with the influential evil sister of Kim Jong-un condemning the decision to transfer heavy battle tanks. Kim Yo-Young's statement came on the heels this week of the U.S. confirming it will send 31 M1 Abrams tanks to Ukraine, and they were her first public remarks in months. She charged that Washington is crossing a red line in its drive to escalate a proxy war aimed at regime change in Russia. I expressed serious concern over the U.S. escalating the war situation by providing Ukraine with military hardware for ground defense. You know, folks, I agree with a little bit of what she's saying there, and that's pretty frightening that I would agree with a Korean communist. She continues, the U.S. is the arch criminal which poses serious threat and challenge to the strategic security of Russia and pushes the regional situation to the present grave phase. She added in her official statement as Vice Department Director of the Central Committee of the Workers' Party of Korea, I do not doubt that any military hardware the U.S. and the West boast of will be burnt into pieces in the face of the indomitable fighting spirit and might of the heroic Russian army and people, she added. Importantly, at a moment the U.S. is accusing Pyongyang of supplying Russia's military and artillery shells and other lethal equipment, particularly the Wagner Group. Kim stressed that North Korea will always stand in the same trench with Russia So, folks, let me just block that out real quick. NATO is saying they're ready for war with Russia. Russia is saying we're at war with the Western nations, NATO. They're pumping in the weapons of war into Ukraine. We're heading for a really bad place. You know, number 45, Donald J. Trump said, first we send tanks, then they send nukes. You know, somebody's got to stop this madness and start talking about peace. But all the articles I'm seeing and all the, you know, warlords on both sides talking, it's heading for a clash. I pray, you know, somebody with some common sense will say, you know, World War III isn't really in humanity's best interest. So why don't we all sit down at the table and negotiate a peace deal and stop this? One last thought that did occur to me. You know, being open-minded, trying to use some critical thinking. Putin has kind of been slow-walking this attack on Ukraine. I really think, and people have said this in the comments, if Putin wanted to defeat Ukraine, he'd just mow it over. So I had the thought, maybe he's slow-walking this, trying to pull us in. And, you know, he wants this, you know, final conflict of humanity, that he sees himself as a historic figure. I don't know that. I mean, I think it's, on its face, it's what we see it is. But it's a thought I had. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments down below. Keep prepping. Keep praying, my friends. Please subscribe, like, and share this video. May God bless you and keep you safe. I do have another video I'm going to share. I didn't want to group it in this one. I could have, but it's kind of a separate subject that I want to make a video specifically on that I will post yet tonight. So I'll see you in that video. Goodbye.